Here are some facts about World War II. World War II was a global conflict that lasted from 1939 to 1945. It involved the majority of the world's nations, including all of the great powers, organized into two opposing military alliances, the Allies and the Axis. The war began with the invasion of Poland by Nazi Germany on September 1, 1939, and quickly spread as other countries declared war in response. The war resulted in the deaths of an estimated 70–85 million people, making it the deadliest conflict in human history. The Allies were made up of the United States, Great Britain, France, the Soviet Union, and China, among others. The Axis powers were led by Germany, Japan, and Italy. Some of the most significant battles of the war included the Battle of Stalingrad, the Battle of Midway, the Battle of the Atlantic, and the D-Day invasion of Normandy. The war also saw the first use of atomic weapons in combat, with the United States dropping 2 bombs on Japan in August 1945, leading to Japan's surrender and the end of the war. The war had a profound impact on the world, leading to the establishment of the United Nations, the beginning of the Cold War, and major changes in the balance of power around the world. Many technological advances were made during the war, including the development of radar, jet engines, and the first computer. The war also saw the rise of several influential leaders, including Winston Churchill, Franklin D. Roosevelt, Joseph Stalin, and Adolf Hitler. World War II remains one of the most studied and discussed events in history, and its impact on the world continues to be felt today. The war had a significant impact on women's roles in society, as many women took on jobs traditionally held by men who were fighting in the war. Women also served in the military, with some serving as pilots and in other combat roles. The war led to the formation of NATO, North Atlantic Treaty Organization, and the Warsaw Pact, two military alliances that shaped the global balance of power for decades to come. The Battle of the Bulge was the largest battle fought by the U.S. Army during World War II. It took place in December 1944 and January 1945 in the Ardennes Forest in Belgium and Luxembourg. The Enigma machine, used by the German military to encrypt and decrypt secret messages, was a key factor in the war. The Allies were able to crack the code and gain access to crucial intelligence that helped them win the war. The war had a profound impact on the arts, with many writers, artists, and filmmakers producing works that reflected the horror and devastation of the conflict. Some of the most famous works include Anne Frank's diary, Elie Wiesel's Night, and the film Schindler's List. The war also saw the beginning of the space race, as both the United States and the Soviet Union raced to develop new rocket technology and explore space. The war had a lasting impact on the global economy, with the United States emerging as the dominant economic power and Europe struggling to recover from the devastation of the conflict. The war led to significant advances in medical technology, including the development of penicillin, which saved countless lives. The war also saw the forced relocation and internment of Japanese Americans in the United States, as well as other groups targeted by the government. The Nuremberg trials, held after the war, were a series of trials in which Nazi leaders were prosecuted for war crimes and crimes against humanity. These trials set a precedent for international law and the prosecution of war criminals. The war in the Pacific was fought primarily between the United States and Japan. The U.S. military strategy focused on island hopping, gradually advancing towards the Japanese mainland by capturing key strategic locations in the Pacific. The Siege of Leningrad, which lasted from 1941 to 1944, was one of the longest and deadliest sieges in history. The city was surrounded by German forces and cut off from supplies, leading to the deaths of an estimated 1 million civilians. The United States entered the war after the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor on December 7, 1941. President Franklin D. Roosevelt famously declared that the attack was a date which will live in infamy. The Battle of Berlin, which took place in April and May of 1945, was the final major battle of the European theater of the war. It resulted in the capture of the city by Soviet forces and the suicide of Adolf Hitler. The war had a significant impact on the environment, with widespread destruction of forests, fields, and cities. The use of chemical weapons, such as mustard gas, also caused long-term environmental damage. The war led to the creation of the GI Bill, which provided education, training, and financial assistance to veterans. This program helped to fuel the post-war economic boom in the United States. The war also saw the development of new military tactics and technology, such as the use of paratroopers, amphibious landings, and aerial bombardment. The war had a significant impact on the cultural landscape, with many iconic images and symbols emerging from the conflict, such as the Rosie the Riveter poster, the V for Victory sign, and the swastika. The war also led to the formation of the United Nations, which was established in 1945 to promote peace and international cooperation. The war had a profound impact on the lives of millions of people around the world, leading to displacement, trauma, and loss on an unprecedented scale. The legacy of the war continues to be felt today in the ongoing efforts to promote peace, justice, and human rights around the world. There were many significant historical events that occurred during World War II. Here are some of the key events. September 1, 1939, Germany invades Poland, marking the beginning of World War II. Battle of the Atlantic, 1939 to 1945, a long-running naval campaign fought primarily between Germany and the United Kingdom, involving the use of submarines and convoys. Operation Barbarossa, June 1941, the German invasion of the Soviet Union, which marked the largest military operation in history at the time. June 22, 1941, Germany invades the Soviet Union, breaking the non-aggression pact between the two countries. December 7, 1941, Japan attacks the U.S. naval base at Pearl Harbor, drawing the United States into the war. Battle of Midway, June 1942, a naval battle in the Pacific, where the United States defeated the Japanese Navy and halted their advance in the region. Battle of Stalingrad, August 1942 to February 1943, a major battle on the Eastern Front, where Soviet forces successfully repelled a German invasion and inflicted significant casualties. Tehran Conference, November-December 1943, a meeting between the leaders of the Allied powers, Franklin D. Roosevelt, Winston Churchill, and Joseph Stalin, to discuss strategy for the war. Operation Overlord, June 6, 1944, the Allied invasion of Normandy, France, which was a major turning point in the war and led to the liberation of Western Europe from Nazi control. June 6, 1944, D-Day, the Allied invasion of Normandy, France, begins. Warsaw Uprising, August to October 1944, an armed uprising by the Polish resistance against Nazi occupation, which resulted in the destruction of much of the city and the deaths of thousands of civilians. Battle of the Bulge, December 1944 to January 1945, a major German offensive in the Ardennes region of Belgium, which was ultimately unsuccessful and resulted in significant German casualties. February 1945, the Yalta Conference takes place, where leaders of the Allied powers discuss plans for the post-war world. April 30, 1945, Adolf Hitler commits suicide in his bunker in Berlin. May 8, 1945, VA Day, Victory in Europe Day, is celebrated after Germany surrenders to the Allies. Potsdam Conference, July-August 1945, a meeting between the leaders of the Allied powers, Harry Truman, Winston Churchill, and Joseph Stalin, to discuss post-war Europe and the future of Germany. August 6, 1945, the United States drops an atomic bomb on Hiroshima, Japan. August 9, 1945, the United States drops a second atomic bomb on Nagasaki, Japan. September 2, 1945, VJ Day, Victory over Japan Day, is celebrated after Japan officially surrenders to the Allies, ending World War II. Nuremberg Trials. Trials of Nazi leaders take place after the war for war crimes and crimes against humanity. These events, and many others, shaped the course of World War II and had a lasting impact on the world.